Stay tuned for another exciting story about American veterans as told by the veterans themselves and hosted by Randy Baxter, the host of The Veteran Next Door.
The Veteran Next Door. Here's your host, Randall Baxter.
It's good to know I'm not all alone.
Welcome back to The Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we've got part 3 of a show today that we've been working on for several weeks, and we're here with Mr. Ed Janad. Ed, tell us what we've been up to.
Well, the last 2 weeks, this is going to be the third part of the series, is about veterans treatment courts in Knox County. The first show we did, we've like to follow this process, what, so what, now what. So the first week's episode was about what, and why do we want a veterans treatment court here in Knoxville?
Okay, and in our conversation warming up here, we wanted to make a distinct difference between maybe a criminal court or a civil court versus a treatment court. Do you think we'll be covering that today?
Yeah, we have Judge Chuck Cerny here with us, and from the General Sessions, number 1?
Absolutely, General Sessions Court, and Knox County's what used to be called Drug Court, but now we're referring to it as Knox County's Recovery Court, and we're also getting up and running, and we have been up and running with our Veterans Treatment Court, and we'll be able to explain the differences between those things and help people understand better a treatment court versus your normal adversarial proceeding type court, the court that folks are more familiar with. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Great. Yeah. And last week we talked more about how the court worked.
Yeah, and the difference is what is the difference between a recovery court and a veterans treatment court? Okay. And as we mentioned last week, we said one of the key components to that success is the veteran mentor portion. Okay,
yeah, and then you even wound up training some people this week to help the mentors.
We have 3 certified trained mentors. We have 2 in training. The Administrative Office of Courts provided us training in June for a boot camp that's presented by Justice for Vets, and so far we have 10 veterans who stepped up and said, yeah, I want to be a part of Judge Cerny's court.
And then last week it was 3.
It's, our faith-based initiative, when War Comes Home, is really spreading the word, and we went from 3 to 10 in 1 week.
1 week.
Yeah.
And you know, what I have learned about all this that's going on, we have soldiers that come home that are trained to react militarily, and they may get into a situation publicly or privately that causes them to react in a different way, but their training may react in a way that gets them in trouble. And it sounds like this is a way to help them through that.
Yeah, we went through some of the startling facts. I don't want to go through that again. It's serious.
It is
and,
serious.
You know, the neat part about this is our veteran treatment court works.
Folks, I want you to stay tuned. We've got an interesting show today, and I think it solves a lot of problems. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
Sun up on a cool, sweet morning. Sausage frying in the pan. Make that sausage always Wamplers. It's the finest in the land. Wamplers, Wamplers, it's great sausage made on the farm in Tennessee. Don't say sausage, just say Wamplers for the best in quality. Make that sausage always Wamplers. It's the best in quality.
Stories told and retold from the battlefronts of America's wars by the veterans themselves. The Veteran Next Door. You love the show. Now, Get the book, World War II, Volume 1, 1939 to 1946. Read about how our veterans attempted to free children trapped by fascist countries. Learn about the supermen we sent to liberate the world from the crimes of World War II. Stories of Pacific land battles on the land and the sea, battles in Europe, land in the air, survival in the ocean, when a ship sinks and one breaks in half, soldiers who deserve the Medal of Honor, and read the story of the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, when many soldiers came home and had to deal with a corrupt county government and prove the need for our Second Amendment. Stories told and retold from the battlefronts of America's wars. Be sure to get your copy at Amazon.com. The Veteran Next Door, Stories from World War II, Volume 1, 1939 through 1946. Don't miss one word of The Veteran Next Door.
You know, if you already have the book, I hope you're enjoying it. But a lot of people ask me, do they have to order through Amazon.com? Answer is no. You can get it direct from me and have it autographed. All you have to do is call 865-525-2323. Or you can go to my website at www.theveterannextdoor.com. And those are all little letters, no spaces, theveterannextdoor.com. Makes a great gift for birthdays, anniversaries, and with Memorial Day coming on, I get emails from people that said they've bought and read the book and they've learned more about their parents by reading the experience of other people during World War II. I think you'd enjoy it too. So give us a call, 865-525-2323, or order the book online at theveterannextdoor.com.
Now back to The Veteran Next Door.
Only mama there to greet me, no one to shake my hand.
Welcome back to The Veteran Next Door, and we have a great show planned for you today. You know, we've been talking about some roles that some volunteers have done to come into to set this Veterans Court thing up, the role that Ed Janod played and the mentors and everything like that, and Mr. Hanover. But Ed, go ahead and introduce our guests and tell us the story.
Yeah, it's my pleasure and honor. We have Honorable Chuck Cerny, who's our Veterans Treatment Court judge, and we have Ron Hanover, the Veterans Treatment Court and Recovery Court director. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Tell us. We've watched it set up, but tell us the judge's role. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, I'll let the judge say that he could explain what his role is and how he's operating in our court. But I'd like to throw out just to show everyone how exciting this is and how natural the progression is. You know, we talked a couple weeks ago about May 1st is when we've decided to go out there and try to start a Veterans Treatment Court. And we visited with Ron Hanover along with Steve Perella. And that was on May 3rd. And it was a natural, wasn't it, Ron? So after a couple hours of discussion, we went, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, we were talking on the same page, and we hit it off right away, and we knew that this was going to be something that was going to be successful and help a lot of people.
Yeah, and surprising to me, because I didn't know anything about the judicial system, just how complementary the recovery courts are with the Veterans Treatment Court.
Well, people say I don't know much about the judicial system either, Ed.
But my point, thanks for distracting me there, Your Honor. But the point is just to show you how fast it is. And so we presented this to Ron on the 3rd, and Ron took this to Judge Swart and Judge Cerny. And in 17 days, on May 20th, Ron sent me a text and said, Honorable Chuck Cerny has agreed to go forward with it in 17 days. So we're really thankful and honored to have you here, Your Honor. And so I'm going to turn it over to you to let people know what we found out. What's the difference between the court, the recovery court, and the Veterans Treatment Court? And you two would know that.
I'll do my best to do that as clearly as possible and as briefly as possible. I'm sure that there are a lot of folks who've had familiarity with getting stopped for a traffic violation and that sort of thing. And so law enforcement brings a case where they allege that there has been some traffic violation, then I'm sure that there are folks out there in your listening audience that are familiar with having the experience of maybe going through a divorce and having to go to court over that. Maybe you've had a civil case where there's been a little car wreck, or you've had to, you've got rental property and you've had to ask somebody to move, or you yourself have been asked to move out of rental property for inability to pay rent or something like that. So those are situations where there's two adversaries who have two differing opinions about the way things ought to be, and so they seek out a court in one format or another to have some kind of hearing or trial so that they can get a resolution to their dispute. Even if it's the state of Tennessee bringing criminal charges, they in fact bring those criminal charges against a person who is charged with those crimes, and that person has the opportunity to get legal assistance to help themselves contend against those charges. We call that an adversarial system. Prosecutor brings a case, defense lawyer helps a defendant defend the case, and folks are pretty familiar with that through television and movies and even personal experience. But we use the terminology recovery court or drug court or veterans treatment court, and court is still part of the name because a judge is involved. But in fact, it's non-adversarial. There is not a proceeding at all where we're trying to advance the cause of the prosecution's case against the defendant. Now, when you end up with a veterans treatment court, it's because you have a justice system involved defendant, meaning they have been charged with a crime. But we take them out based on their voluntary, deciding they want to do this, that we take them out of the normal track, which is bring the charges, continue the case until the case is ready, do some investigation, eventually present it in front of a jury or a judge, that kind of thing. That would be the normal track. But we take that veteran, or in fact in a recovery court, an addicted person, out of that normal, I hesitate to use the word rut because I believe in the criminal justice system and the justice system in this country anyway, but we take them out of that normal track and instead what we're doing is we put them in a situation where we help them with veterans issues, help them with treatment issues if addiction is a part of the process, help them with dual diagnosis if some sort of mental issue is also implicated. They have caseworkers, they have counselors, they have professionals, and they also, in the case of veterans treatment courts, something that's unique and special and wonderful, and I'm ecstatic about this, is our veterans mentors who help veterans get to services that they need and that sort of thing. A judge is involved in case you need something. We use the terminology sanction when there's a behavior that has to be when the behavior merits some kind of, repercussion because the behavior is not productive towards recovery or productive towards getting your criminal justice problem behind you. But we also have, I think, great incentives in the form of, we throw celebrations and we have get together and have picnics and parties and stuff like that when folks are doing well to celebrate their success in recovery. And that's clearly different from the normal adversarial track. It's clearly a situation where you're trying to help someone as they progress toward a better life. And sometimes that progression is incremental. Sometimes you have to reward a little step in the direction of being a better citizen, and sometimes you have to have a sanction because there's a little bit of divergence from the behaviors you want to see that are beneficial. But by and large, we are in the business of changing lives and changing behaviors. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Can I ask a question there?
Absolutely.
What's an example of a sanction?
Sometimes it can range from a lot of different things. Sometimes we have to have a brief period of incarceration. Like, for example, one behavior you want to discourage is actually relapsing and using in the case of a person who is, and this would be true of veterans treatment courts or recovery courts. If someone relapses and uses, you have to have a brief period of incarceration. And we're not talking about going back and serving your original sentence. We're talking about 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that, or a violation of important rules. We have some pretty stringent rules for folks involved in a recovery court setting or a veterans treatment court setting. Like, for example, one thing that seems like an onerous rule at first is you can't have a cell phone. Because a lot of times cell phones are used, you look at the contact list in a person's cell phone, and the contact list is by and large people who supply substances that folks abuse. And so as a result, we don't let folks have their cell phones back until they demonstrate that they can be trusted with that privilege. So initially, as you go through certain stages, you have to make certain sacrifices as a participant in a veterans treatment court or recovery court. And so sometimes we have to have a brief period of incarceration. I've had occasions, and the recovery court in Knox County has tried to be creative. Every now and then we have something interesting, different, and maybe even, if you want to use the term, bizarre. We have participants having to write their own obituary and be honest about it. And the rest of the participants are called upon to hold them accountable if they're really full of what. I mean, if somebody writes something that's ridiculous and just trying to get through the assignment and make something up as they go along. Because when you are heading down the wrong path in your life and you have to think enough about your life so that you say to yourself, if they had to do my obituary right now, they'd have to say that, there were certain ways in which I was a disappointment to myself, to my family, even to my country because of behaviors I've exhibited. That can actually have a pretty significant emotional impact on somebody. And so that's another example of something that we have done.
Hey, Chuck, I know there's a big misconception, and I heard you use the words picnics and parties and all that stuff. And Ron and I were at a training session yesterday, and, when we talked about recovery court and veterans treatment courts, a lot of people have a misconception is it's a free ride. It's just the opposite, right? I mean, there's a big commitment, not only from the treatment team, but also from the participant to make sure that they're engaged and that they complete this.
Well, I would say it's anything but a free ride. The fact that we know from scientific research that you can get an awful lot of behavior change out of positive reinforcement. In fact, more behavioral change out of positive reinforcement than trying to punish an adverse behavior leads us to using both sanctions and incentives. So yes, we do in fact celebrate when folks are doing very well, but we also have to provide sanctions when folks are not doing well. And the behaviors that you are expected to exhibit in a recovery court or treatment court setting are difficult because it requires a personal life change. You have to become a truly better person. And you have to leave behind the patterns that got you into problems with the criminal justice system to begin with. And it's to have a judge looking over your shoulder and examining what you've done for the past week, every single week, with the understanding that if you are having problems, you could go to jail every single week. I'm putting more effort into holding folks accountable than any other aspect of the justice system. And the treatment team, Ron Hanover and all of his folks that work with him, make sure that the people that we work with are toeing the mark, paying their court costs, paying restitution, testing negative for drugs every single time. We have random drug testing. How many times a week, Ron? At least
3 times a week.
And folks have to test clean, and they have to leave behind their drug of choice. They have to participate in 12-step meetings at least 4 or 5 times a week. Isn't that right, Ron?
Yes.
So, that's an extremely difficult thing to cope with. It'd be a whole lot easier to be on, intensive probation and work with a probation officer. So.
Okay. We're going to have to go to break here, but something I'd like to hear in the next segment, if you guys would allow it, is I'd like to hear how you two work together, Mr. Hanover and Judge Cerny, just to see how that works. But you're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
In a world of rising medical costs and shrinking retirement accounts, Many vets are concerned about preserving their precious assets, and some are struggling to provide for the basic personal care they need at a time in their lives when they need it the most. Fortunately, as thanks from a grateful nation, our government created the non-service connected disability pension with aid and attendance. It provides qualified veterans and their surviving spouses with a tax-free monthly pension to help defray the cost of long-term care for those who need in-home care, assisted living, or skilled nursing care.
I hope you listened to that ad. Call me on the phone if you've got problems with VA benefits as far as these non-service related disability benefit with aid and attendance. That number is 865-525-2323. But I want to tell you why. There are 3 ways to learn about your veteran benefits for this particular benefit. One is through your VSO officer at the VA, or you may learn about it from an attorney, or you may call a volunteer veteran advocate like myself. I think it's important that you know the difference between the 3 roles. First of all, the veteran service officers are good men and women who represent the VA, and they represent you. But you have to remember they are not licensed to give you the proper financial advice to qualify yourself before you present yourself to the Veterans Administration. For that reason, since they cannot give you advice on what to do because they are not licensed, they have to look at you as you are when you walk in the door. That's causing a lot of people to be told that they don't qualify for that benefit. The next issue is attorneys. I'm what's called, again, a volunteer veteran advocate. But you need to know I have the proper licenses to give you the advice that you need to qualify for this benefit. This means that I can tell you whether you even need an attorney or not for your application. Many attorneys are charging veterans up to $400 for the first interview to tell them whether or not they need an attorney. So this is the important part. Your volunteer veteran advocate who has the proper licenses can save you in legal bills and can save you a declination from the Veterans Administration, and it's absolutely free. So why would you pay an attorney, or why would you go to someone who does not have the proper licenses to give you the proper advice before you talk to a volunteer veteran advocate? So if you are a veteran, the surviving spouse of a veteran, or a family member of a veteran who may need these services, call Randall Baxter, 865-525-2323, and schedule an interview. Again, it's absolutely free to get the proper advice that you need. Again, 865-525-2323. I hope to talk to you today.
Seniors Helping Seniors, an in-home services company for seniors by seniors. We offer just the services you need to remain independent and living in your own home. The type of services we provide are companionship, housekeeping, meal preparation, transportation, doctor visits, and much more. We provide these services with other caring and compassionate seniors. When these services are provided by other active seniors who really understand what your life is like as a senior, it can make a big difference. We want to keep you independent. We want to keep you safe. We want to bring a little joy to your life. Call Seniors Helping Seniors in-home services today. Find out how we can make a big difference for you or a loved one. Call 865-269-4483. That's 865-269-4483. Seniors Helping Seniors in-home services.
Now back to the Veteran Next Door.
Welcome back to the Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we're having a great discussion here today about Veterans Court. And A couple of weeks ago, you heard the story of Dean Powell, who was has served a little time in prison. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
And but that was pre-veteran court. So tell us your story again, Dean, real quick.
Well, thanks again for having me on, and it's always a privilege to speak out for righteousness. And I'm so excited about what's going on in Veterans Court, and I think we're going to talk about that later. But back in when I came home from Vietnam the second time, unfortunately, I came home with a drug problem that I was trying to sedate a lot of pain that I had experienced during my experiences in recon in the infantry in Vietnam. And through my self-medicating program, I ended up doing 7 years for interstate transportation of a lot of stuff to get myself high and other people. And it was really a lot of things I was doing. I was making a lot of wrong decisions. And through that, I came in to a courtroom where a judge looked at me and had very little empathy and no sympathy of what I was experiencing. He had one thing in mind, and that was to go along with what the prosecutor said. And they made a judgment on where I was and what I'd done. And as I say, I ended up doing 7 years in prison for it. And this system that's going on right now with Veterans Treatment Court just elates me. I get so excited about it because these guys actually care. I've been fortunate enough as a mentor to get into the court and actually see the judge sitting here. As I've told him, he doesn't judge people, he encourages people. And I'm very fortunate to be a part of seeing how this is helping other men in the system, because I'm getting a chance to mentor them and help them transition from coming out of an adversary situation in combat to come back to the streets and let them know that, hey, man, there is peace here if you'll just listen to the people who are concerned about you. And this program that's put together is to help encourage you to get involved in something positive in the community.
Right, and then, but this program didn't exist for you.
No, it did not exist for me.
So with us today are Mr. Hanover and Judge Cerny. And can you two just tell us a little bit about what you might have been able to do for this man if this program had existed? Let's start with Mr. Hanover. The listeners may not remember your role.
I'm the director, and what we could do is if Dean was in the criminal justice system now and he was brought to our attention, what we would do is we would talk with him, do an interview, and then put together a package of treatment to help resolve his problems, and then hold him accountable to progressing through the program, and then monitor him and give him the treatment, and watch him progress through the program.
The fact of the matter is the general public has a viewpoint that if someone does something bad, they should receive a bad consequence, and that's pretty reasonable. We determine, and we all agree, that violating Tennessee's criminal statutes or the criminal statutes of the federal government, that's probably bad, and a bad repercussion should occur. But there's a kind of synergistic, beneficial impact of the treatment courts, and it's been about a 25-year history, not just in Knox County, but all across the country. We've been noticing that, at some point or another, you have to stop fixing every problem with a hammer. For the right candidate, for people who are screened, who do not have violent offenses, who qualify for a program like this, in fact, what you're doing is you're saving taxpayer dollars, you're preventing reoffending, you're preventing relapse, you're preventing continued use of the person's drug of choice, whether it's a person who's addicted or a person who is addicted or having mental troubles, post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of their military service. Those folks don't need to continuously medicate themselves and reoffend, and our society doesn't need it either. If you want to find a cost-effective way of helping folks avoid being victimized by crime, helping the persons who are involved in the criminal justice process lead a better life is a whole lot better than paying hundreds of dollars a day to simply house them, like they're in a warehouse. And so that's kind of the basic philosophy behind treatment courts.
Who would Dean run into first? Would he run into you, or would he run into Mr. Hanover?
It depends on the context. The first time that his criminal case would have come before a court probably would have been a General Sessions Court in Knox County, Tennessee, for example. So I would have probably had him come before myself or one of the other Sessions judges in Knox County. If he appeared to be a good candidate, if his record tended to indicate that he had not had violent problems in the past, but rather behaviors that exhibit addiction issues or other perhaps post-traumatic stress issues, then he'd be referred to our drug court staff for an interview for the sake of trying to help get him out of that track that leads to conviction and incarceration. But rather, we would have tried to take him down another track.
So you would just hand a file over to Mr. Hanover? Is that?
You could say that. Yeah, we'd refer it to drug court personnel who would interview the candidate.
And then what would you do, Mr. Hanover?
Typically, the person's still in jail, and we go into the jail and we interview the person, and we do some assessment. We use assessment instruments that we help us determine whether they have a chemical dependency problem or abuse problem, and whether they have another mental health issue such as PTSD. And then we write a letter to the court, to the defense attorney, and to the prosecuting attorney with what our findings are and our recommendations. And if the recommendation is to admit the person into Veterans Treatment Court or Recovery Court, that's included in the letter also.
Okay, and then what?
Then at that point, we begin a track of very strict supervision, meetings with counselors and mentors, 12-step meetings where it's appropriate. If somebody feels like they've got a problem with feeling like that's a onerous burden on them, like imposition of a faith-based thing, if they're not interested in that, then we have alternative tracks. We hook them up with faith-based systems, and we get them into halfway houses to try and help them with supervision to help them lead a better life. And sometimes it takes a sort of intense level of supervision on a daily basis, at least initially, until a participant shows that they are changing and becoming a different person, so that we can allow them more freedom, more flexibility as we go on through the program. As they advance, we use the terminology phases, or you could say steps or whatever, but the more success a person has with being trustworthy, the more opportunity they have for small freedoms and incentives. And, sometimes, just by way of an example, sometimes we have, I actually go out and buy chocolate, and if somebody's had a great week, I say, look, this isn't much, but this is what I can afford, and I just want to make it a symbol of the fact that I appreciate how well you've done this week. You tested negative for controlled substances 3 times. You made it to all your 12-step meetings. You had good family groups. You had good interaction with your counselor, and I'm proud of you. And sometimes when folks don't do that, then I have to issue the sanctions. But that's kind of a rehash of some of the things we've already discussed. But
does the Veterans Administration get involved at any point?
Dean might be able to answer that, or Ed might be able to give us a more thorough. The answer is yes, but
we have Assistant Commissioner Don Smith, the Department of Veterans Affairs, Tennessee. He's working along with us, and he's assigned us Tom Humphreys and Bonnie Johnson. So they're veteran service officers who are working along with us to make sure that they have benefits if they're entitled to those, make sure they have their VA health, help them through some of the mental health assessments, right, Ron? And So if they need to go there, they might have PTSD or TBI. We try to use the resources they're eligible for. And we're hoping. I just got a letter from Christy Cook yesterday from the Department of Veterans Affairs. The person that will really help us out, Judge, is our Veteran Justice Outreach Specialist. And that person would be in the jails, also working along with you, Ron, trying to identify the veterans and help them assess, and then do all the jobs that Bonnie and Don Smith and Tom Humphreys are helping out with right now.
We're going to cover some more of these issues. We have to go to a break right now. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
Energize, detoxify, and hydrate 6 times faster with Hydrate Alkaline Ionized Water. Hydrate is available at the Veteran Next Door store at 4812 Asheville Highway, or you can call the Veteran Next Door store at 865-525-2323. That's 865-525-2323. Also available at your local Knoxville area Walgreens and Kroger stores. Bottled at the source in Dandridge, Tennessee, this natural spring water and effective antioxidant reduces acid waste, hydrates cells quickly, and tastes delicious. Hydrate is a veteran-owned business and a proud sponsor of the Veteran Next Door. For more information about Hydrate Alkaline Ionized Water and the benefits it provides, and for wholesale and private label options, visit www.historicsprings.com. That's historicsprings.com. Try it today.
Statements not evaluated by the FDA nor meant to replace your doctor.
When it comes to receiving your Social Security benefits, do you know how many options you have? Probably more than you realize. And those decisions will impact your monthly payment, the amount of tax you pay, and the benefit your surviving spouse may receive after you pass away. Hi, you know me. My name is Randall Baxter. I'm offering a free consultation to show you ways to maximize your Social Security benefits and to become better prepared for retirement. Your retirement income may have to last as long as 30 years or more, and inflation can impact the purchasing power of that income. If you or someone you know would like a complimentary consultation on Social Security and retirement income planning, please contact me, Randall Baxter, at 865-525-2323. That's 865-525-2323. Or visit my website at www.randallbaxter.com.
Securities offered through On Point Advisory and Financial Services, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. 4812 Asheville Highway, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37914. The individual making this offer is a licensed insurance professional and not associated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. By calling this number, you may be solicited for a possible sale of an insurance product. The following is brought to you by the Veteran Friendly Congregation Initiative. All right, I have a question for you. Did you know that veterans are 5 times more likely to seek help from their clergy than every VA service combined? Your congregation could help promote awareness of the needs of those sacrificing their time and effort to support our country. You are invited to join a forum regarding the challenges of our veterans returning from war and how you can help veterans seek the benefits, services, and support they have earned. When War Comes Home, the forum, May 1st, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Knox County Community Action Center at 2247 Western Avenue in Knoxville, Tennessee. Your congregation can be an environment of acceptance for veterans and their families. Register online at tnvhc.org. That's tnvhc.org. Or you can call 865-253-2794. That's 865-253-2794. The When War Comes Home Forum. May 1st. We'll see you there.
Now back to the Veteran Next Door.
No one to shake my hand.
Welcome back to the Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and our guest today, Dean. You didn't have any help when you were in prison. Tell us about that.
You know, Randy, I wished I had the opportunity that this drug court gives, recovery court, excuse me. You know, I was sentenced and I was put into a prison. I was surrounded by a 40-foot wall. I was put into a jail cell and locked up that was created to house 4 people, and we had 8 to 10 people in there, depending on the time. I didn't. I was given a job that I had to work at least an hour a day. Well, one thing we all have in common, we all have 24 hours a day, so I had 23 hours a day I could do what I wanted to do with myself. Some of that time it could be spent locked up, or I could go to the learning center that was there in the institution, in which I took advantage of, and I started going there and working with another inmate that I was actually having to learn how to read and write and to use the mechanics of the English language. I really didn't know that. But through a lot of self-discipline, not anything that the institution provided other than a facility to do it in and another inmate to help me out, I would never learn how to read or write if it hadn't been for that. Also, I didn't have any structure as far as what are you gonna do with your day, and how you going to prepare yourself to leave and go out on the street when you leave the institution. I didn't have that information. Didn't have any family support that was. It was like your family became in, and they were really adversaries to a lot of people in the institution. So anyway, we didn't really have a pleasant environment that we could grow in. Also in that institution, there was a lot of other things going on I wished I hadn't had viewed. But anyway, a lot of things you guess couldn't talk about on the radio.
Judge Cerny, can you change that? I mean, are you changing that environment?
I earnestly believe we can change that, and I earnestly believe that we can provide the opportunities for somebody who wants to make a change in their life through treatment and recovery courts, veterans treatment courts, and I can tell you through my interaction with Dean that he is a good man, and I'm proud to be his friend, and I'm ashamed that he had to undertake to do this basically all on his own. And the fact is, there are people out there who are involved in the criminal justice process, and they get involved because of various kinds of things that are difficult for them to control. And with some help, they could prevail in this battle against addiction, post-traumatic stress disorder, or other forms of mental illness, problems with controlling their behaviors. You know, and I just want to make sure that we touch on the fact that this is not some sort of altruistic, do-gooder, coddle the criminals kind of foolishness. It's nothing remotely like that. It's a situation where people involved in the criminal justice process have learned that this is just a smarter way to do criminal justice for those people who are the right candidates. There will always be that classification of human being who becomes less than a human being because they're so mean-spirited, and they wake up in the morning, look at themselves in the mirror and say, "You're mean, and I like you that way." You know, and those are the folks that need to be in custody as long as the law allows, as long as we do it within the constitutional restraints that we have. But there are some people who wake up each morning and say to themselves, "I'm not proud of you. I don't like what I am. I want to change, and I want to do something different." But then they have to go get their drug of choice because they have to avoid the effects of not getting it. Why am I forgetting that term for when Ron helped me with the
withdrawals and the symptoms of mental health issues,
yeah,
PTSD.
Yeah, actually, when people don't get their drug of choice, they go through a lot of suffering, and so as a result, their motivation is to get their drug of choice, and so they end up getting criminal justice involved once again. You know, if you can help somebody break that cycle, one of the things that you do for your society is people don't get victimized again. People don't get their stuff stolen. They don't get, into a confrontation with someone who's heading down the criminal justice road. If we can help people change their lives for the better and make them better people, it saves taxpayer dollars that we spend on incarcerating them.
You know, Judge, when you were talking about the withdrawals, And Ron mentioned PTSD, which I'm a victim of. That is something that I used to turn to. It wasn't so much to get high, it was just to get by. I didn't want to think about the anger. I didn't want to think about the deaths that I had experienced seeing in my life. I didn't want to think about all these issues, and so I would turn to the drugs. So that's another thing I love about this program. You guys recognize that.
What do you think, Mr. Hanover?
Well, when we first started looking into problem-solving courts, it was in 1997. There was the 10 key components that were just published, and it was published as these are some pretty good ideas on how to run a problem-solving court. And since then, there have been a lot of research on drug courts and other problem-solving courts, mental health courts, and veterans treatment courts. And now they have found that the 10 key components, if followed stringently, actually are evidence-based practices. And so, and the study that was recently done on the Knox Recovery Court is that we stringently follow those 10 key components. And then the new research is that with veterans treatment courts, when you have that mentoring component, that the evidence shows that the success rate actually goes up by about 50% because of that extra interaction with someone who has been there, done that. I'm a survivor of this. You can be too, is the message.
You know, I'd just like to add to what Ron has said just a little bit. It's very easy for us as citizens consuming what the media allows us to see to conclude that everything is just flat going wrong in the criminal justice system, because it's so easy to put those stories out there that you know you're going to get viewership, readership, and listenership, because folks get angry that things are just so bad. But the fact of the matter is, treatment courts, veterans treatment courts, like Knox County's Veterans Treatment Court and Knox County's Recovery Court, are an example of things going good, where people involved in the criminal justice system are trying to think of the way to do it better, trying to help not only individual participants who qualify and who are appropriate for the program, but also saving taxpayers' money and saving John Q. Citizen from being re-victimized once again by the same person, because if you can turn a life around, you can make a life better. And you can make everybody else's lives around them better, including their families, including their neighbors, including their employers, including everybody else who's hoping that they'll go ahead and pay their taxes and pay their court costs back and pay their restitution. And that's the thing that is happening. Those are things that are happening with Knox County's Veterans Treatment Courts and Recovery Court. And we are making positive changes in individuals, of course, the participants, but we're making a positive difference for our community as well. And I think that people need to be aware that they can be encouraged, that, you know, maybe it isn't quite as flashy and you don't get quite as much news about it, but there are things going right in Knox County in the criminal justice system because folks are working hard to do the right thing.
You know, Judge, I'd like to jump in here. You know, one thing, you know, after you have your court on Wednesday night, there is the participants leave the courtroom and they go over and they meet their family members at the recovery court facility over on Summit Hill, and they have a training class. And in this training class, they learn what the dis-ease is that's going on in this individual's life and how it's not just affecting them, but how it's affecting the whole family. And it's really a healing process that goes on. It's really exciting to be there. And I've foregone my going to your court just to go to the training classes because I'm being enriched in those classes so much myself.
Thank you, Dean. And if our listeners out there, who are they going to call?
If you have a loved one who's interested in Veterans Treatment Court, you can call Ron Hanover. He would be the go-to person, 865-659-6666. 6352. I don't have my glasses with me. I better check that one more time. 659-6352. Call Ron Hanover. He's the director of Knox County's Recovery Court and Veterans Treatment Court. Ron, you are going to be able to refer folks to the programs that are going to give them some help.
That's what we're here for.
You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Veteran Next Door Radio, hosted by Randall Baxter.
Are you a veteran? Or maybe your parents or grandparents were? Go to theveterannextdoor.com. That's theveterannextdoor.com for access to past military records, information on the aid and attendance benefit, or to order past copies of the show. That's theveterannextdoor.com. That's theveterannextdoor.com. Check it out. You'll be glad you did.
Now back to the Veteran Next Door.
Welcome back to Veteran Next Door. JL's got something to say to us.
Yes, I'd like to take these few seconds to Legacy Peer Support Group and the Veterans Treatment Court wishes to extend a heartfelt thanks to my daughter, Christy Palm, for her enthusiasm with this clothes and bicycle drive. Thank you.
We want to thank Dean Powell and Judge Cerny and Ron Hanover and Ed Janad for their patience today. And remember, each one, reach one, teach one. If you want to call Ron Hanover at 659-6352, or if you want more information on the website, www.tnvhc.org. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll see you next week.
And it's good to have you back, America. Oh, it's
I never was a soldier, but I played one as a child. History was good to me. I grew up free and wild.
You've been listening to Randall Baxter and the Veteran Next Door.